Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Exodus Media Network. This is number 108, and as usual, we will have consequential information for you. Consequential information for you. I really don't know any other way to say it other than the fact that we are currently being invaded. We are currently enduring an invasion, and I'm going to start off by talking about the Chinese invasion in particular. Now, listen, you all have to be acutely aware by now that there is an invasion at the southern border. You all have to be acutely aware by this point that Harris and Biden, and I say Harris first because Biden appointed her the border czar, thereby setting her up for failure, because as all this shit is hitting the fan, he can blame everything on her. Even though he's the president, he did appoint her border czar. Now, I say that in order to make sure that she takes absolute accountability for this, because likewise, you see, she will try to push it off onto Biden and say that he was the president and that she was the vice president. But she is the vice president and she is the border czar. But you know, the real story is both of these individuals are accountable, because both of these individuals are doing exactly what they want to do, seeing exactly what they want to see happen on the southern border. And many of us don't seem to have to bear very much concern as it relates to what's happening on the southern border. And that is a very serious problem, ladies and gentlemen, in particular when you consider that the Chinese are our enemy. The Chinese are our enemy, and we should stop all trade interaction with them immediately. It should immediately cease. We should bring all of our American companies home. And as I've said in the past, the most expeditious thing that we could do as it relates to that is to, once we bring them home, help those companies to relocate to Africa and give them incentives to relocate to Africa. And I have a whole spiel on why I chose Africa, why I think these American companies should relocate to Africa, but I won't get into that right now. But back to this Chinese invasion at our southern border and elsewhere and beyond. And the reason why I say and beyond, because, well, first let me address this. We've had 24,000 illegal Chinese cross into the United States of America since Biden and Harris have been in office. 24,000. During the Trump administration, at best, there were approximately 1,800 per year. So over the course of 4 years, that would be 1,800, which would be 7,200 during Trump's 4-year administration. We're in year 3 of the Biden administration, and there's already 24,000. So he's averaging 8,000 per year, whereas under Trump, it averaged approximately 1,800. And ladies and gentlemen, understand that the 24,000 Chinese, primarily young adult men that have come here over the course of the past 3 years due to Biden and Harris's border policy, they are here as a result of the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. They are not coming here simply because these young men stood up one day and decided that they wanted to come. They're here because the Chinese Communist Party wants them to be here, because they are intended to be the enemy within. These single Chinese men are crossing the southern border in unprecedented numbers, and they are very rapidly contributing to the total numbers of the enemy within. Also, let me make this point. The few 100,000 or so Chinese students that are here on M1 and F1 visas, they also make up the enemy within. Likewise, the Chinese individuals that are here legally under work visas, they also constitute the enemy within. We have this influx, this invasion of Chinese coming here legally and illegally. And it is the intention of the Chinese Communist Party to do just what I'm talking about, because they want to put these people here in our country, and they want to put them into consequential positions, as well as they're here to extract consequential information, whether that be technological information or military information or whatever. But they are here to serve a purpose for the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, and we're doing nothing about it other than opening the southern border and allowing an unprecedented number of F1 and M1 visas and work visas. Ladies and gentlemen, the Biden administration, the Democrat Party, Biden and Harris are complicit. They orchestrated this thing. Now, the real hand in this is Obama. Now, many of you may see that as some sort of a conspiracy theory, but trust and believe Obama and the former people and the people that were in his previous administration, they are the real people orchestrating this, ladies and gentlemen. They are the real people. Now, I would like to submit to you, offer up a little video evidence to support some of what I'm saying. Just a little video evidence to support some of what I'm saying.
242,000 people crossed into the U.S. in November, which is an increase of 5% from October. And a new NewsNation Decision Desk HQ poll shows border security is a top priority for Republican voters. More than half of those polled say the border is the most important issue, and almost half support building a border wall.
Take a look at this video here that we were able to obtain, where a massive group of Chinese nationals were being processed by Border Patrol agents. The majority of them, as you can see, are single adult men, and they hope to be granted asylum here in the United States. The majority of Chinese migrants, just like migrants from around the world, fly to Ecuador because the South American country does not require a travel visa from Chinese citizens. Now, in the first 9 months of this year, over 15,000 Chinese migrants traveled through the dangerous Darien Gap jungle in Panama that is controlled by criminal groups. Chinese migrants are not subject to the same vigorous vetting that migrants from countries considered special interest are. The reason? Officials tell me it's all about politics.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's the video evidence. You saw all those Chinese young men there waiting in line, waiting to cross the southern border. Now, some of them will get in line and come across, but many of them will just simply sneak across and avoid Homeland Security. But whatever the case, we're allowing them to enter in to our country. These people mean us no good. These people only seek to bring harm to the United States. Now, very quickly, I'm going to touch on how this thing works. If you don't believe that the CCP is behind this, well, I'm going to elaborate. I'm going to explain how the CCP works in conjunction with all of these Chinese illegals and legals that they're sending over. Remember, you have the illegals crossing the southern border, and you have the ones coming legally on M1 and F1 visas and work visas. The M1 and F1 visas are educational visas, whether it's for vocational school or for the university system here in America. But they're coming like parasites to extract critical, consequential information from our country so that they can become more advanced than us and then use that technology and that information that they parasitically extract from us against us. We have to do something about it. And real quick, there's so many things I need to say, but for leading up to the election of 2020, I saw all of these Democrats riding around with these bumper stickers that said any functioning, any breathing adult, meaning that they wanted any functioning, any breathing adult to occupy the White House, and they were suggesting with their bumper stickers that Trump wasn't an adult. Well, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but Trump was the adult in the room, and Biden and Harris certainly are not the adults in the room, because as the adult in the room, Trump did not allow 24,000 illegal invaders to come here from China in order to implant themselves within our borders and eventually help to launch an all-out assault against us, because currently they are launching an assault against us, but I'm talking about an all-out assault, and that is to come later if we don't do anything about this, ladies and gentlemen. So Trump was obviously the adult because he did not allow these 24,000 illegal invaders and counting, 24,000 illegal Chinese invaders and counting under the Biden and Harris administration. Trump did not allow that. Therefore, Trump was the adult in the room. In addition to that, Trump had his Remain in Mexico policy. And therefore, we didn't have 10 million people flowing over our border in just 3 years under Trump. Trump did not allow that. Trump was the adult in the room. These people had to remain in Mexico. And because of the Remain in Mexico policy, the vast majority of these people were discouraged from even coming to the border. Therefore, they stayed in their country. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an unprecedented level invasion of Chinese illegals at our border, not to mention the Chinese that are coming here legally on M1 and F1 visas and work visas. And we seem to be doing nothing about it. And I also want to say this. Now, recently, Governor Abbott down in Texas, he did pass a bill, and I guess he has decided to get tough. Now, I don't know if these messages ever made it to his ear, but I sent several messages to Governor Abbott, and I didn't bite my tongue. I made it very clear that as far as I'm concerned, he's a traitor. I also made it very clear, and I sent a message to the citizens of Texas. You so-called Texans, you cowboys. You know, we hear all these stories about how Texas is this and Texas is that, and Texas strong, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I have no respect for that whole concept that you Texans like to put out, trying to portray yourself as being some larger than life. Because if you Texans were really larger than life as you claim to be, all you good old boys would hightail it down to the southern border in your F-150s with your shotguns and your 10-gallon hats. So until you do that, don't talk to me about patriotism, you Texans. Until you do that, don't talk to me about American exceptionalism and how much you love this country. And I don't give a damn what military you served in and what war you fought in. Until you boys can get yourselves together and hightail it down to the border and occupy that border and prevent these illegals from coming in. And don't talk to me about breaking the law. The law is being broken every time these people cross our border. The law is being broken by the idiot in the White House that can't even think past the tip of his nose by allowing these people in. So you good old boys down in Texas, I said this before and I'm going to have to say it again. Take your asses down to the border. Occupy the border with your F-150s and your shotguns and say, hell no, not over my dead body or my shotgun. And you don't have to worry about the sheriff, because if you all go down there in the numbers that you can go down there in, you will outnumber the local police, you will outnumber the sheriffs, you will outnumber the National Guard, the Texas National Guard, you will outnumber the state troopers, the Rangers, every damn body. And I guarantee you, if you go down there and you occupy that border, nobody will try to remove you. I guarantee you, not even the American military would try to remove you, because if they did, nobody would like what would happen. That would launch a civil war in this country. Texas has every right to protect this border. And by protecting your border, Texas, you're protecting the rest of us. Look at this large influx of illegals in New York and Chicago. And like I said this a year ago, and you can go look at the video. I said, you Negroes in New York and you Negroes in Chicago, you were going to begin to scream and cry and yell bloody murder as a result of all these damn illegals pouring into your city. And now your black mayors in these cities are talking about giving these illegals free college education. They're already feeding them and clothing them and housing them and giving them Visa cards already loaded up with certain quantities of money and so on and so forth. You Negroes in New York and Chicago, you lost your damn minds, because we warned you ahead of time what was going to happen if you voted for this suck ass in the White House. We told you what was going to happen. We told you that he was going to allow this influx of illegals. They're the new niggas. I said that out of my mouth going back years and years and years ago. I was saying that back in the early 2000s that they was going to bring them in, and this is the great replacement that I was talking about, and that they now think they're talking about. This is the great replacement. These Mexicans and these El Salvadorans and these Guatemalans, they're the new niggas. They're replacing you, and they're accessing your limited resources that you thought were for you. Which brings me to this, ladies and gentlemen. I told you Negroes a long time ago that what we're dealing with here in the United States is limited resources. Now you have greater competition for limited resources. And what are you doing? You still gonna run out, and you have yourself all ready to go to vote in 2024 for the same damn party that done threw your black asses under the bus. And I just showed you the video a few minutes ago of all those Chinese illegals lined up and crossing the border, coming across the border. 24,000 have come so far. You can't tell me that they aren't the enemy within, being placed here by the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. Absolutely they are. Absolutely they are. And we're not doing anything about it. We're not doing a damn thing about it, and that's a damn shame. And hey, Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, you signing that little bill, that don't mean shit. You get your National Guard, your state troopers, your county sheriffs, your local police down to the border, and then you put a call out to your average everyday citizens to come to the border with their shotguns and their F-150s and say, not over my dead body. And you push those people back and you stop allowing those illegal invaders into our country. What in the hell is going on? This is the America that I grew up with. What in the hell is going on? You got these Chinese people that come in via Ecuador. They make it to Ecuador. They fly to Ecuador, and then they make that 3,000-mile trek from Ecuador up to our southern border. And along the way, they already have Chinese hotels specifically for these Chinese, makeshift hotels for these Chinese to stay in as they make that 3,000-mile journey. This is the truth. Go look it up. And then they just waltz on into our country willy-nilly so that they can extract critical, consequential information like military secrets and information from our universities and from our corporations. This is a damn shame. We are aiding the enemy within. And Senator Dick Durbin, you a damn fool, Senator Dick Durbin of Illinois, because you're perfectly fine with this shit. That man right there claims to be perfectly fine with this shit. And let me tell you, here's what we're going to do. We're going to present some more video evidence, and I'm going to show you Limp Dick Durbin. I call him Senator Limp Dick Durbin. And here he goes, ladies and gentlemen. You want to see this man? Listen to his position on this whole thing.
If you're an undocumented person in this country, and you can pass the physical and the required test, background test, the like, you can serve in our military, and if you do it honorably, we will make you citizens of the United States. Do we need that? Do you know what the recruiting numbers are at the Army and the Navy and the Air Force? They can't reach their quotas each month. They can't find enough people to join our military forces. And there are those who are undocumented who want the chance to serve and risk their lives for this country. Should we give them the chance? I think we should.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's more video evidence. This is consequential information. You heard it right there in that man's words. That's Senator Limp Dick Durbin from Illinois. This is what happens when you have a large urban area like Chicago and really what's a red state outside of the city of Chicago. But when you have this large, massive blue cities in these red states, you get people like Senator Limp Dick Durbin. Now, here's the thing. You heard that man say that he's willing to install Chinese illegals and other illegals into our American military. Now, we just caught 2 people of Chinese descent in our U.S. Navy stealing secrets and sending them to the Chinese CCP, to the Chinese Communist Party. And I'm going to show you a video about that. But before I even get to that, listen, Senator Dick Durbin and all the rest of you funky ass liberals, Democrats, liberals, progressives, let me tell you something. The reason why these good old red-blooded American boys and girls are not willing to sign up for the United States military in the numbers that they had been signing up for the U.S. military prior to Biden and Harris is because it's no longer a traditional military. It's no longer about being a fighting force. It's now a diversity, equity, and inclusion LGBTQ sex change military. Who in the hell wants to join the military when they're preoccupied with diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI? Who the hell wants to join the military when it's all about LGBTQs and sex changes? Nobody wants to go in. Nobody's going to join in the military for that. That's not the military. What in the hell is going on? That's why nobody wants to join. Nobody wants to subject themselves to this liberal madness within this military. That's why. And you're promoting all of these transgender generals and so on and so forth. This shit is insanity. We're destroying and killing ourselves from within. Why would you trust the Chinese in our military? Why wouldn't you understand that they can't be trusted? The Chinese can't be trusted. It's in their nature not to be trusted. They've shown us that. These are irreligious people. And as I said, we recently caught 2 individuals of Chinese descent, and they were stealing secrets and sending those secrets back to the Chinese. So let me show you about that. Let me show you.
U.S. Navy sailors are in court today accused of selling sensitive information to the Chinese government. Petty Officer Wen Hengzhao, who is also known as Thomas Zhao, was arrested yesterday. He's being arraigned in federal court in downtown L.A. Among the secrets he's accused of selling, plans for a large military exercise and diagrams and blueprints for a radar system. Zhao was assigned to Naval Base Ventura County in Port Hueneme.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's just who they happen to catch. Imagine how many they haven't caught. Imagine how many people have not been caught. Listen here. We are currently importing terrorists. We are currently importing terrorism. Whether it's these illegals that we're allowing across the border, or whether it's the Chinese students or Indian students or the Iranian students and so on, and all these students from these Muslim countries that are coming here. We can't continue to import these people. And then they're coming here and they're having kids, and now they're giving these kids are supposedly citizens. That's insane. And then they come with their irreligious ways. They come with their horrible culture, and they want to impose that upon us instead of assimilating and at least trying to conduct yourselves as Americans, identifying with American exceptionalism, patriotism, the flag, et cetera, et cetera. Listen, the people that come now are not coming to assimilate. The people that come now are not coming to be American. They're coming to get what they can. They're coming to be parasites. They want to live this parasitic lifestyle and come here and get all the benefits of being in America while flying the flag of the country that they came from. That's insane. Why don't you just stay there? Why don't you just stay there? And as I said before, the way the Chinese Communist Party works is like this. You have these students that come here on the F1 and the M1 visas. You have the Chinese workers that come here on work visas. And once the Chinese Communist Party identifies that they are in an area where they have access to consequential information that the Chinese Party would love to get their hands on, what they then do is they come and they knock at the door and they inform them that they have to now go and steal that consequential information, that secret information, whether it's military, technological, or whatever, and then hand it over to the Communist Party or else. And the or else, ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, is this. Your family either comes up missing back in China or they end up in a concentration camp working alongside the Uyghurs. That's how it goes down. That's how this thing goes down, ladies and gentlemen. The Chinese Communist Party is laughing to no end because they can't believe how the Democrat Party, Biden and Harris, and these liberals and these progressives in our country are so stupid by leaving our country so vulnerable. They cannot believe it, ladies and gentlemen. It's like Christmas every day to Chairman Xi and the Chinese Communist Party because and they hope like God that Trump doesn't get back in because Trump will shut that shit down. They're sending over tons and tons and tons of fentanyl, and Americans are dying in the streets. And now, since Biden and Harris have been in, you have as many as 110, 120,000 people overdosing per year. Why? That's because of this overflow influx of drugs as a result of the open border. So the Chinese see it as open season for sending their fentanyl to the Mexican cartels, and the Mexican cartels know absolutely it's open season. So they're doing all this human trafficking over our border. They're sending in all these drugs over our border, and they're not even restricted in the least bit, because Border Patrol is preoccupied with 10 million people walking across the border. Ladies and gentlemen, if this is not the enemy within that I just described, and obviously the enemy within is the American Democrat Party. The American Democrat Party does not accept and believe in American exceptionalism. The American Democrat Party sees the United States of America as this horrible entity. Ladies and gentlemen, listen. It's time you come to your senses. It's time you take consequential information like this and you distribute it to your friends and family. And you cannot refrain from distributing content that the Exodus Media Network puts out for fear of friends and family having a negative attitude, disassociating with you or whatever. Because let me tell you, you're all going to be in the same boat once the shit hits the fan if you don't do something now. So you better do something now, and they can thank you later. They can be mad at you now and thank you later. But you make links out of my stuff and you send it to everybody you know and everybody you don't know. And I'm just keeping it real. Listen. Everybody I just talked about, Democrats, Biden administration, people that are traitors. They're absolute traitors. But I'm going to talk about something. Now, this happened in Cincinnati, and I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. But this is happening all across the United States in all of our major American cities. And basically, I call this unequally yoked and misguided in Cincinnati. And this whole situation of this unequally yoked and misguided situation here in Cincinnati is happening all across America. All you have to do is turn on the evening news and you can see it. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about all these groups getting out of here talking about we're for Palestine, free Palestine, ceasefire, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All this pro-Palestinian protest is taking place. But before I jump deep into this, I got to make a point here. Now, all you liberal, irreligious Jews in America, I didn't say all you Jews, because you all are trying to say that I'm anti-Semitic when I'm so pro-Jewish. And my Lord and Savior was Jewish. And I am absolutely for the nation of Israel, and I want to see them prosper. And more than anything, I want to see the 7 million Jews in Israel be led to Christ. But let me make this point. And many of them, a nice number of them are beginning to come to Christ. But my whole point is this. You liberal, irreligious Jews that keep voting Democrat, what you are really doing is expeditiously guiding your people back into a situation like what you had during World War II and the Nazis. Let's be brutally honest. Because you are aligning yourself with the Democrat Party, and the Democrat Party has already aligned themselves with these radical Islamists, and the radical Islamists had aligned themselves with Hitler during World War II, and they continue to identify with Nazism. That's a whole nother story, and the proof is there. Yet you align yourself with the Democrat Party that has aligned themselves with them. What are you doing? I thought you said never again. But as we've moved in time away from World War II and the Holocaust, you people seem to be forgetting about never again. And unfortunately, the proof is that you continue to align yourself with these radical leftists, and that is the most expeditious way for you to fall back into the same type of situation that you had with the Nazis in Europe during World War II. This is amazing. And you people are supposed to be so intelligent, because many of you liberal, irreligious Jews, you have these Ivy League educations, or you went to University of Chicago or Berkeley or somewhere so-called prestigious, yet you come out so stupid. You come out so stupid. But you're setting yourselves up. But my whole point is this: unequally yoked and misguided in Cincinnati, and you see this happening all around the country. Here in Cincinnati this past week, we had a so-called rally in a place called Washington Park. And this rally and this prayer vigil in Washington Park was a pro-Palestinian prayer vigil and rally in a place we have downtown called Washington Park. And this rally and this prayer vigil was led by so-called Jewish, Muslim, and Christian leaders in Cincinnati. And they met there in Washington Park and to call for a ceasefire in Gaza and a prayer vigil and to pray for the Palestinians. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. That rally, like all the other rallies around the nation that are so-called pro-Palestinian, let me tell you something. They have sponsors. Rallies have sponsors. This rally here in Cincinnati, like all other rallies, has sponsors. So I'm going to tell you who's sponsoring these rallies. The rally here in Cincinnati was sponsored by CARE, which is the Council on Islamic Relations, CARE. The Council on Islamic Relations is a terrorist organization. It is an Islamist terrorist organization, and that's been proven. And why they are allowed to function basically with impunity within the United States, I do not know. They should be immediately apprehended and shut down, and they should not be allowed to exist in the United States of America. But unfortunately, we don't have the intestinal fortitude or the balls to do that. The second sponsor, co-sponsor of this so-called event was the Jewish Voice for Peace. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something about the Jewish Voice for Peace. They are actually an anti-Jewish, progressive Luciferian organization. And I'm going to tell you something about this organization that should cause you to be deeply concerned. One of the quotes on their website is, like generations of Jewish leftists before us, like generations of Jewish leftists before us. They're telling you what they are. They're Jewish leftists. A leftist is un-American, anti-American, anti-Judeo-Christian, and seeks to undermine the United States of America. They don't even try to hide the fact that they're radical leftists, that they're leftists. They proudly boast it on their website. And also on their website, they have the quote, "Cease fire now." Listen, if you tell the Israelis to cease fire, in effect, you're telling the Israelis to reintroduce themselves into a situation like what happened back in October. If they cease fire, Hamas will have the ability to regroup and recalibrate and launch another attack. The only answer, the only alternative is absolute 100% destruction. And yes, there's going to be collateral damage, but it is what it is. Furthermore, 75 to 80% of so-called Palestinians support and identify with Hamas. So I'm not very concerned with collateral damage. And what war doesn't have collateral damage? America became what it has become and has been able to remain free, not just because of soldiers killing soldiers, but because a lot of collateral damage was sustained along the way. And that is just the nature of war, ladies and gentlemen. Now, their core values. I looked on the website, and this Jewish Voice for Peace, they also stated what their core values were. And they said that their core values were accountability to Palestinian partners. Why would your first core value but be accountability to Palestinian partners? Why do you feel the need as a Jewish individual to have accountability to Palestinians who hate you and want to see your complete destruction? This shows you how stupid these liberal, irreligious, leftist Jews are. I told you they are expeditiously heading back into a Holocaust because of their ignorance. Ladies and gentlemen, their other core value that they state is that they have a commitment to Jewish communities and racial justice. Listen, you can't sit up here and tell me that you have a commitment to Jewish communities when all you are doing to Jewish communities are opening them up and making them vulnerable to this enemy that you are helping to co-sponsor. And that enemy is the Palestinians. And when you go and vote Democrat, you're helping to allow the enemy in at the southern border. And that's what the Jewish Voice for Peace does. The Jewish Voice for Peace is a leftist organization. They tell you that on their website, but they're also a Democrat Party organization. They are just an extension of the Democrat Party in the Jewish community. Ladies and gentlemen, the third sponsor of this rally that we had here in Cincinnati, Ohio at Washington Park, the third co-sponsor was the United Church of Christ. So what do we have, ladies and gentlemen? We have three entities that are sponsoring these pro-Palestinian rallies, and those three entities are the Jewish Voice for Peace, CARE, and United Church of Christ. Well, I already made it abundantly clear to you, and everybody should know by now without me telling you, that the Council on Islamic Relations, CARE, is a terrorist organization, is an anti-American organization, is an anti-Judeo-Christian organization, and they should not be functioning here in the United States of America. But unfortunately, they are. Then I informed you that the Jewish Voice for Peace is actually an anti-Jewish, leftist, progressive organization, and they mean America and Jews no good. And third but not least, the United Church of Christ, they have a lot of nerve calling themselves the United Church of Christ because they are a Luciferian demonic organization that subscribes to LGBTQism, female pastors, etc. And all of that is not acceptable biblically or in the eyes of God. And this organization is actually anti-Christ, and that is made clear by the fact that they subscribe to LGBTQism and female pastors. Ladies and gentlemen, they should actually be called the United Church of Satan. And in my book, they are actually the United Church of Satan. And this Jewish Voice of Peace is actually just a liberal, irreligious voice of Satan and nothing more. Ladies and gentlemen, you are being hoodwinked. You are being hoodwinked if you are witnessing what's unfolding here with these so-called pro-Palestinian ceasefire rallies, because it's nothing more than the enemy within organizing and rallying support for their cause, and their ultimate cause and goal is to bring America down and to make America into something that it wasn't meant to be, and that thing would be something that is very un-American, very un-American. When you talk about legals and illegals, now it's obvious, it's evident that we should not have illegals crossing our southern border, but unfortunately, many, if not most Americans, assume that people are entitled to immigrate to America. People are not entitled to immigrate to America. We are not entitled to extend the invitation for people to come here legally. I explained in the past that we no longer need legals, and we certainly don't need illegals. There was a call that went out for legals during the Industrial Revolution because our country was growing and growing very rapidly, and we had to solicit people primarily from, and rightfully so, from Western Europe, because those cultures in the Western Europe, those are cultures that more resembled what we had here in America. You see, you can't be bringing these unequally yoked, irreligious people from these shithole countries. So by all means, if you're going to have people coming here legally, I would want them more so to come from Western Europe or to come from Judeo-Christian countries. And that would be more so from Europe in the past, but now that Europe is becoming extremely irreligious and rapidly becoming leftist and liberal and progressive, it's no longer even safe to import people from there. And furthermore, we have 350 million people in the United States of America. Well, there's no reason for us to go out here and allow 1.5 million illegals per year, or to go out here and allow 3.3 million illegals per year, as the Biden-Harris administration has done. There's no need for that. All we're doing is setting ourselves up for failure. With the 350 million American citizens that we have currently here, and we have enough people to sustain what we're doing, and there Americans are being born every day. But more importantly, we have American young adults that are graduating colleges and vocational school and high school every year. And these people are very much capable and equipped to go into the workforce, whether it's into the into STEM areas or whatever it is. And they are very trainable. So why are we importing people from these irreligious shithole countries? Why are we importing these inferior cultures? We need to stop that immediately, or America will cease to exist. America will cease to exist. And speaking of Israel, do not cease fire, because that is going to lead to Israel being completely destroyed. You double down. You double down, Netanyahu. You go in and you extract these people and you get these people, and you don't worry about the media buzz about collateral damage and other people that are unfortunately going to be collateral damage. That is just the nature of war. That is just the nature of war. And while we're talking about that, let me very rapidly say this about Facebook, YouTube, and other social media platforms. You have what I call the algorithm from hell. I call it the algorithm from hell. And what do I mean when I say the algorithm for hell? Because these algorithms are designed to bring the social media viewers death, destruction, and debauchery, while labeling the anti-death and destruction and anti-death and the anti-destruction and the anti-debauchery content as being against the community guidelines. Let me repeat, ladies and gentlemen. You know what I just stated is real. You know what I just stated is true. Facebook, YouTube, and all these social media platforms have what I call the algorithm from hell. And these algorithms are designed to bring death, destruction, and debauchery. And if you go in there and look, what they permit, what they find permissible, what they say meets their community guidelines is always death, destruction, and debauchery. That's what they allow up there as their content that is permissible. But when somebody comes along like me with consequential, pro-American, pro-Judeo-Christian information, I'm labeled as being harmful and insensitive and going against the community guidelines. These people are complicit, and they are part of the enemy within. They're working alongside them, and they are working towards the destruction of the United States of America, which I have given the moniker of Judeo-Christian Capitalist Constitutional Republic. I repeat, Judeo-Christian Capitalist Constitutional Republic. I repeat, Judeo-Christian Capitalist Constitutional Republic. That's what we are. That's what we have to maintain. That's what we have to fight for. And currently, that Judeo-Christian is very rapidly being erased, or has been greatly removed from that title, but we have to fight to restore it. We have to fight to restore it back to its prominence and where it should be. First and foremost, that's the reason why the first thing I say in that moniker is Judeo-Christian Capitalist Constitutional Republic, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we are. That's what we are. Let's see here. We're going to switch gears, but we're going to continue to come with consequential information. Everybody has seen this recently in the news. We've all seen this. We've seen this attack. The attack on Trump has just intensified. The attack on Trump has just intensified because the blue, godless state of Colorado and their Supreme Court, with a 4-3 vote, has removed Trump from the Republican primary ballot. Now, Trump immediately filed an appeal. So at this very moment, he continues to be on the ballot pending this appeal. But the Colorado State Supreme Court absolutely violated the 14th Amendment. Well, let me say this. They cited the 14th Amendment as their reason for removing him from the ballot. They claim that he led an insurrection. This is a lie, a very provable lie, because you've seen, maybe you've seen, but if you follow me here, you certainly seen where Trump said, and it's on video, but they edited the video to make it look as though Trump was saying something other than what he said. But Trump very clearly said, let's peacefully and patriotically go down here and protest. By no means can the words peacefully and patriotically flow off of the tongue of a man and be misinterpreted as an insurrection. Yet these people, in plain sight, are able to go out here because the American electorate are caught up somewhere else, and so they can be convinced that an insurrection took place and that Trump led it, when Trump never ever did anything that would remotely resemble leading an insurrection. And the only thing that Trump said actually establishes the fact that what he did was quite the opposite of leading an insurrection. He said, let's peacefully and patriotically go down here and protest, ladies and gentlemen. And Trump was the one who offered to have the National Guard present at the Capitol that day in order to prevent the type of fraternity toga party that we witnessed. It was nothing more. I said that in previous videos. It was nothing more than a toga party. That's all it was. People were reliving their college glory days. And that's all it was. Ladies and gentlemen, here's the thing. Because George Floyd, because this is all related, because we're talking about insurrections, George Floyd's suicide by drugs, which has been established, because we talked about on here how he had that cocktail of drugs in his system that was killing him. Furthermore, you can't it doesn't take 20 minutes to cause somebody to stop breathing. But what was happening was the cocktail of drugs was in his system, and it was slowly causing him to expire. And that's why it took 20 minutes. It doesn't take 20 minutes to take that, to cause that man to expire. And Derek Chauvin should be released from prison immediately, now that it has been established that he was not responsible for that man's death. The cocktail of drugs that he ingested is what was responsible for his death. And before Derek Chauvin is hurt any more than what he was when he was brutally stabbed more than 24 times, that man should be released from prison. I don't know why that man hasn't been brought from prison to a courthouse and released, because it has now been proven for the second time that it was that George Floyd committed suicide by drugs. That's what happened there. But let's talk about insurrections, because we had 574 insurrections that took place in the United States of America because George Floyd decided to commit suicide by drugs, and then black leaders chose and white liberals chose to blame it on Derek Chauvin. He did not murder that man, but what happened as a result of George Floyd committing suicide by drugs? Maxine Waters, the Squad, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, and others told BLM, Antifa, and dumbass white trash liberals and dumbass black coons to go out and riot. And what did they do? They went out and rioted. There were 574 riots as a result of George Floyd's suicide by drugs. That's right. I'm telling the truth here. His family needs to get over the fact that, hey, this man expired not because of Derek Chauvin, but because this man chose to live a certain lifestyle, and embodied and embedded in that lifestyle was drug abuse, and it was the cocktail of drugs that caused that man to expire that evening, not Derek Chauvin. But hey, it's so easy for the family to blame Derek Chauvin because it makes sense and it got them paid. But ladies and gentlemen of the Floyd family, now that you have your money, now that you've been paid, would you please stop blaming Derek Chauvin and let's have some accountability? Let's have some accountability for George Floyd on his behalf, because he's not here to take accountability for what he did. And I would absolutely believe that if George Floyd was here, if he could somehow reappear, he would tell you black rioters across the country, you black rioters and instigators in Minneapolis, and he would tell his family members to free Derek Chauvin. Let that man go. And I think by now he would have came to the conclusion that he was responsible for his own demise, and that he would freely admit, now that this thing has been done, that he committed suicide by drugs. But as I said, let's talk about insurrections, because here's the deal. They accused Trump of organizing an insurrection on January the 6th, simply because he said, let's peacefully and patriotically go and protest and have our voices heard. Now, if he can say that and it be misinterpreted as an insurrection, how in the hell is it that the very flagrant things that was said by Maxine Waters, the squad, Nancy Pelosi, Kamala Harris, and others was not an insurrection? Because they very clearly told people to go out and riot. They didn't even bite their tongues. And what happened? They went out and they rioted 574 times all across America. And there were billions of dollars in property damage and destruction. There were lives lost. There was hundreds of millions of dollars in merchandise stolen, just randomly stolen for no apparent reason from retailers. How are they responsible for what happened to George Floyd when he committed suicide by drugs? How were the innocent victims that were killed throughout these 574 riots responsible for George Floyd committing suicide by drugs? How were these property owners responsible for George Floyd committing suicide by drugs, and thereby you burning down and destroying their property? We've lost our minds in this country. And you black people that ran out there and you rioted and you called yourself protesting, and you wasn't really protesting, because what you thought you were protesting against was non-existent. You're a bunch of coons. If you're a black person and you're voting Democrat, you're a coon. You're nothing more than a coon. Because these Democrats, as I said in another episode, they're smarter than you. They've outsmarted you. They convinced you to go out and riot and destroy your own communities and kill people and destroy property and steal merchandise. And it was all being filmed, and you look like a bunch of coons out there. You look like you had no home training. What in the hell's going on in this country? That was the actions of a nigger. So when somebody calls you a nigger as a result of what they saw in those 574 riots, damn it, they're justified. Running out there acting like a nigger. That's what you did. And all you white liberals, you Antifa type that were out there, you wasn't nothing but a bunch of white trashes. You ran out there acting like a bunch of white trashes as a result of this lie that was put out. This false fake narrative that was put out. George Floyd, murdered by Derek Chauvin. That's a lie. George Floyd committed suicide. by drugs. He had a cocktail of drugs in his system. And as a result of that, America has been transformed, fundamentally transformed, reimagined, as you radical leftists like to say, reimagined into this liberal, progressive, Marxist shithole. Back to Trump being removed, so to speak, from the ballot, pending an appeal. The Colorado Secretary of State is a female by the name of Jenna Griswold. She's an absolute idiot. No, listen. She has a law degree, I believe from University of Pennsylvania, but that doesn't absolve her from being an idiot. She's an idiot. She also happens to be Jewish, and she also worked for the Obama campaign in 2012 as a voter protection lawyer. You see, her title was a voter protection lawyer. There was never any need for a voter protection lawyer because the voters never needed protection because the voters were never in a position of vulnerability as it relates to what they're suggesting. You see, when the Democrats to the left appoint a voter protection lawyer, what they're ultimately saying is this here, is that these voters, these Democrat voters, these black voters need to be protected from being disenfranchised from Republicans and conservatives. That's bullshit. Because they say this is what the left, this is what the Democrats say, already knowing that black voters have already been disenfranchised, but not by Republicans or conservatives. They've already been disenfranchised by Democrats. And how have they been disenfranchised by Democrats? Because they've been lied to by Democrats. That's part of the grand scheme. I created that term, the grand scheme, to explain this whole elaborate lie and all of the tentacles and components that come along with this lie. Yes, the black voter was disenfranchised by the Democrat Party because of the lies and deceit that they put out there in order to compromise the hearts and minds of the blacks in order to get them to vote for the Luciferian demonic Democrats, for the anti-American, anti-Judeo-Christian Democrat Party. And that's why I say white liberals are smarter than you black Democrat voters, because they've convinced you to be anti-American. They've convinced you to ignore their history of racism. The Democrats have convinced you to destroy your seed through abortions. The Democrats have convinced you to embrace LGBTQism and to immerse that into your churches and allow them to be married in your churches. Hell yeah, they're smarter than you. They've convinced you to slap your God in his face, to turn your back on him in favor of abortions and LGBTQism and Marxism and socialism and progressivism and all these other demonic isms. And let me submit this. This Secretary of State, Jenna Griswold, that done got out here running her mouth with this anti-Trump rhetoric, she's an absolute mental midget. She may have gone to the University of Pennsylvania and she may have a law degree, but she's a damn idiot. And I'm going to tell you how she's an idiot. How the hell can you go through all those years of studying law and conclude that a man came out and said, go down here and peacefully and patriotically allow your voices to be heard, and that's the equivalent of leading an insurrection? That tells me you're a damn idiot, Jenna Griswold. And furthermore, listen, she's married to a guy I believe is an Egyptian and a Muslim, and she's Jewish. Go figure. See, I can go into that so many ways, but we're gonna leave that on the table, and y'all can sort through that. Colorado is practicing voter suppression. Citizens of Colorado, your state is practicing voter suppression when they chose to remove Trump from the ballot, therefore suppressing your vote and your opportunity to vote for a legitimate candidate. That's voter suppression, ladies and gentlemen, what Colorado has just done, but they'll turn right back around and accuse conservatives and Republicans of voter suppression. You see, you people nowadays, you're not too intelligent. That's how Colorado can do this, and nobody has ever even uttered the fact that that's voter suppression by removing Trump from the ballot. You haven't heard it until you heard it here today. In the news, ladies and gentlemen, listen. I'm here in Cincinnati, Ohio, where a former city council person, Jeff Pastor, who put an R next to his name, claiming to be a Republican, that was a lie. He also claimed to be a Jew. That was a lie. He's a black individual. And the fact that he ran as a Republican and as a Jewish individual was all out of political expediency, thinking that that would give him the opportunity to access funds and access large amounts of money that he couldn't access had he ran as a Democrat. Because the Democrat Party is already saturated with dumb niggas. So his alternative was, well, let me run over here and identify as a Republican and identify as a Jewish individual, then go out here to the Jewish community and solicit funds from them. That's what he did. That was his whole game plan. But he got in office and he decided to do shady under the table deals so that he could line his pockets. And now today it was announced that he's headed to the federal penitentiary for 2 years. And I say that because also today found guilty on numerous counts of corruption was Democrat Party, former politician, former alderman in Chicago, Mr. Edward Michael Burke. And now he's going to prison. And he formerly represented the South Side of Chicago. All these politicians are self-serving. They're getting elected just to line their pockets or be elevated to a higher office. Nobody's coming in anymore to truly and honestly serve the people. And that's a problem. Or to serve the country, or the county, or the city, or the state, or the electorate, or the taxpayer. Those days are gone. Everybody has an angle, ladies and gentlemen, when they're running for office now. But nobody is truly there to do the work that should be done on the behalf of the people. And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. Listen, I had a conversation today with a gentleman from Nigeria. And my problem with these African immigrants, the ones that come here legally, I've encountered a great deal of them that have this air about themselves. They're very arrogant. They deem themselves to be better than us so-called Black Americans. And they look down on us, and oftentimes they come here and they identify with the left, with the Democrat Party. I wish they wouldn't come here. But this particular individual, he's a buddy of mine, and he came here legally from Nigeria. And I would absolutely say, and I would tell him to his face, that he has an air about himself. He deems himself to be on a level higher than Black Americans. And through our conversations, he's made that quite clear. So I had to remind him, I said, listen, you come over here with this inferior mentality. You come over here with this inferior culture. I had to remind him, you came to this country identifying with the left. And the left has convinced these Black Americans to kill their seed, to destroy their own seed, to wholeheartedly embrace abortion. And that's who you come over here to identify with, to caucus with, to vote with. Ladies and gentlemen, you can't make this up. I had to remind him that, hey, you're not as bright as you think you are. Because you're coming over here and you're aligning yourself with these people, and these people hate your people, and these people have found a way to convince your people to support them to their detriment. You're not as intelligent as you think you are. I also had to remind him that, hey, Nigeria is a shithole country. Now, Lord, I know quite a few Nigerians here, and there's many Nigerians here. You know, you may be offended by this, but the reality is you come from a shithole country. And that is your indigenous country with your indigenous people. And you got a few people at the top that are hoarding all of the resources and the wealth, and they leaving the rest of you Negroes on the outside looking in. And you can't turn around and talk about colonialism or anything like that because you all had your country to yourself for quite some time now. And what have you done with it? You're practicing the same thing that you claim was practiced against you when there was colonialism in your country. A few at the top hoarding all of the wealth and keeping everybody else at bay, living in poverty. I had to remind him of that. I had to remind him of a few things. I had to remind him about Makoka. What is Makoka? Many of you have never heard of Makoka, but it is a slum within the slum of Lagos. That'll rub many of you Nigerians the wrong way. And that's not my problem. That's your problem. You're from Lagos. You're from Nigeria. You know it's a big slum, but Makoka is a slum within a slum because Makoka is a floating slum on top of a trash heap of approximately 250,000 people. And if you don't believe me, go to YouTube and type in Makoka and look at what you're going to see. You're going to see this community built on stilts above the water, this floating community, and the water is filled with trash and debris, and that's where and they use it as a place to discard their trash. So basically, you have a floating dump with people living on top of it. And I even saw in one documentary where when a woman in Makoka comes to have a baby at what they call a hospital, which is really this floating shack with inadequate facilities, then this country has too much oil and too much resources that's worth billions, if not trillions of dollars to have people living like that. And the women would come and have their babies, but the women couldn't leave with their babies until their bill was paid. So in effect, they would hold the women hostage until they paid their medical bill. And they couldn't even go home. And you got the nerve, Nigerians, my Nigerian friend, to come over here and align yourself with the left and to put America down and accuse America of being oppressive. Look at the oppression in your country, where indigenous people are oppressing indigenous people. You people got a lot of nerve coming over here talking. See, you can get that bullshit off on these other Americans that don't know no better. And then you want to talk about America, there's racism and oppression. That's a lie, but you don't need to look no further than your own country, where your own indigenous people are doing this, are oppressing your own indigenous people. You don't need to look no further than Mauritania. They're in Western Africa, where the Arabs are oppressing the black Negroid Africans, treating them like animals. That's right. That's what they're doing. They're treating them like animals in Mauritania. Talk about that. Go and help free the black Africans in Mauritania from being under the foot of those Arabs in Mauritania. You're not going to do that. You're going to come to America and talk shit about America. You got a lot of nerve. You got a lot of nerve. Any functioning adult. I'm back to that. Any functioning adult. You Democrats, you people on the left, you said you wanted any functioning adult. Well, your so-called badly functioning adult, Biden, since he took office, there have been 290 terrorists on the watch list that have been apprehended. Maybe about 1% of that number came during the Trump administration, approximately 11. About 3%. You want to know why 290 terrorists have been apprehended? Because they got the memo. The American border is wide open. Now, if 290 have been apprehended, How many have gotten through? Thousands. And they set up shop here. They're the enemy within, ladies and gentlemen. But before I move on, I need to mention Nikki Haley again. Nikki Haley, unfortunately, seems to be moving up in the polls. She's becoming more popular, and I think the surge that you see is for two reasons: because of all the money that has been put behind her by the Koch brothers and these rhino Republicans that are stupid at best, and also because of these conservative media pundits that they claim to be conservatives, but I hear you coming out in support for Nikki Haley, and you're saying that you would vote for her or she would be a great choice for VP. Let me tell you, that's stupid talk. That's stupid talk. As I said before, Nikki Haley is a rhino. Nikki Haley is the same individual that suggested that we import more terrorists. She suggested that we import Palestinians. Why in the hell would we import Palestinians in the same manner that the Clintons had us import Somalians, and the Somalians have given us Ilhan Omar and radical leftist liberal politics since they've gotten here? Why we import Palestinians in the same manner that we imported Somalians and allow them to pass over all these countries around them where they can seek asylum and bring them all the way to the other side of the world, to the United States of America? Why would we import these inferior peoples and cultures? Why? You see the damage that we are sustaining. You see the damage that is being done to our country and to our values and our value system. You see the damage that's being done to the America First mentality. You see the damage that's being done to the concept of American exceptionalism as a result of importing these inferior cultures. We can no longer import people legally or illegally. It must stop immediately. And if you are a conservative, a Republican, you must fundamentally reject Nikki Haley. She's an idiot. Nikki Haley is a freaking idiot. Illegals, legals, and the consequences. You see these legals and these illegals that come from these inferior cultures, that come from these non-Judeo-Christian countries, they are unequally yoked with us. They're unequally yoked with us. We cannot continue to assimilate ourselves and allow these people into our country that are unequally yoked with us. Why are they unequally yoked? Because they don't have the same philosophy and philosophical perspective on America that we have. We believe in American patriotism. We believe in American exceptionalism. We believe in America first. We believe in the Constitution. We believe in the Bill of Rights. We believe in the Republic. We believe in individual freedom. We believe in the American way. We believe in the free market economy. We believe in capitalism. And last but not least, you're going to think this silly until you think it through. We believe in the interstate highway system that gives us and has given us our freedom to move about. And they want to restrict that. That's because they want to build these 15-minute cities, which is dystopian and radical leftist. But I've talked about that. Go back and search through other episodes, and you can see why I go in on that. Last but not least, I mentioned this at the beginning of this podcast. I'm going to mention it again. We are unequally yoked with these people because we are a Judeo-Christian capitalist constitutional republic, and where they come from doesn't resemble that at all. And without the Judeo-Christian component, we are nothing. And our enemies, internal and external, will very easily and rapidly destroy us if we want to continue to remove and ignore the Judeo-Christian component. That's the reason why Judeo-Christian precedes that whole moniker that I've given to the United States of America. And that moniker did not just come out of thin air. That is what we are as Americans. We are a Judeo-Christian capitalist constitutional republic. And we have to fight to preserve that. And when I talk about being unequally yoked, if you look at 2 Corinthians 6, 14 through 18, you'll see that it says, do not be unequally yoked together with unbelievers. This is why we can't import people from these irreligious countries. This is why if we are to import people, which I'm against, they have to be believers. They have to be from Judeo-Christian countries. We can't import these unequally yoked individuals here and think that they can somehow fellowship with us, that they can somehow jive and mesh with us, assimilate with us. They cannot. They will bring their irreligious ideas. They will bring their inferior culture, and they will try to fundamentally transform us into something that we aren't. And they come from failed states. So if they want to transform us into where they came from, they're ultimately saying that they want to make the United States of America a failed state. Ladies and gentlemen, wake up. Wake up. We are unequally yoked with the people that we are currently importing legally and that we are allowing to come across our southern border. We're unequally yoked with these people. Whether we're unequally yoked because of their inferior culture, or whether we're unequally yoked because they come from non-Judeo-Christian countries, or whether we're unequally yoked because they do not subscribe to the same type of economic principles as us, whatever it is, we're unequally yoked. That's a very real thing. Ladies and gentlemen, do me a favor. Do not ignore me when I say make a link to this video and all my videos and disseminate them. Please do not ignore that. Ladies and gentlemen, do not ignore when I tell you to please take a look at the ticker below and acknowledge the different ways that you can contribute, and then have the heart to contribute. It should be evident right now that our society is in a potential irreversible collapse due to the importation of inferior cultures, as I stated before, due to the importation of non-Judeo-Christian persons, as I stated before, due to the importation of progressivism and liberalism from Western Europe. A lot of the progressivism and liberalism that we're importing is coming from Western Europe. Most of our Generation Zers and our millennials, they think so highly of Europe, and they love to travel to Europe, and they come back with these fantasies about Europe, these stories about Europe, and how people travel on trains, and everybody's not driving cars and polluting the air, and people have small apartments and small houses. People do without. People live with less, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the American way. We don't have to want to revamp our society to resemble Europe. We saved Europe's ass. If anything, Europe should revamp their society to mimic what we have here. We're the big dog on the block, not Europe. Europe is crumbling. Europe is crumbling under the weight of radical Islam and radical liberalism. And this false climate science and these climate accords that have come about as a result of these false climate claims. We don't want to be Europe. The last thing we want to be is Europe. We want to be America. So let's stop identifying with Europe and their ways. We don't want to live in tiny apartments. We don't want to travel by train. We have our interstate highway. We want to be free to go coast to coast, sea to sea, and everywhere in between. We don't want to have all these restrictions and regulations as it relates to emissions and so on and so forth. We want to get in our automobiles and we want to drive, and we don't want to worry about miles per gallon and emissions and things like that. That's all bullshit. They want to restrict you, ladies and gentlemen. They want to limit you to 15-minute cities, and 15-minute cities are really just a 15-minute prison. And they expect you not to go beyond that 15-minute barrier. Wake up. They want to restrict air travel in America. They want to limit you to flying between 1 and 4 times per year, and ultimately the goal is to get you down to where you fly once per year. That's not freedom, that's slavery. Ladies and gentlemen, if we want to follow this new European radical leftist model, we'll find ourselves in this godless society, because Europe has very rapidly become a godless society. Liberalism, socialism, progressivism, Marxism is running amok. And here's what I'm going to tell you. If we identify with this European philosophy, and we don't identify with Christ, with God the Father, who is our foundation and who is the premise for America, we will basically be relinquishing, and then that relegates us to a place where our foundation becomes Lucifer. You see, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to turn your back on the Judeo-Christian aspect, you don't just get to turn your back on the Judeo-Christian aspect. Something has to replace that, and there's only one alternative. There's only one thing. There's 2 options: Christ, Judeo-Christian, or Lucifer. So when we turn our back on Christ, when we turn our back on Judeo-Christian, we then, as a consequence of that, we turn to Lucifer, and Lucifer becomes our foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a dangerous game that you're playing. You're destroying America. You're turning America to 3D culture, and 3D culture, as you currently see, is collapsing America. And 3D culture is another term that I created, which stands for death, destruction, and debauchery. We must reject Haley, and we must reject Ramaswamy. They are of Indian descent. They both worship pagan gods. They are Hindu. They worship pagan gods. That means they worship the goddess Durga. That's the broad with all those damn arms and shit moving around. They both worship I'm trying to pronounce it, the little monkey called Hanuman. Hanuman is a little monkey god. And if you want to embrace Haley, and if you want to embrace Ramaswamy, ultimately that leads you down the road to where they will eventually make the goddess Durga with all the arms and the little monkey god Hanuman as American as baseball and apple pie. And I'm sorry. We are a Judeo-Christian country, and we want no parts of Durga, the goddess Durga, or the little monkey god Hanuman. And if you think that you can get out here and support Haley and Ramaswamy, and that eventually you're not going to propel yourself into their irreligious ways, if you don't think that them, along with this massive influx of people from India coming to our country on work visas, M1 and F1 visas, is going to, if you don't think it's going to eventually result in Durga, the goddess, and Hanuman, the little monkey god, becoming as American as baseball and apple pie, you're stupid. You're deceiving yourself. And that's the primary reason you have to reject Haley and Ramaswamy. Nobody is using the term Luciferian but me. I've been using the term Luciferian forever, and I use it on a regular basis. And until you people understand that that's who we're dealing with as Luciferians, you're not going to understand how to fight this thing. You people keep pretending that gender and sexual preference don't matter. You keep pretending that gender and sexual preference don't matter. And you're going to be consumed into the bowels of hell and sodomite culture. And you currently see that happening in America. And I'm sick of all you conservatives coming on, calling yourselves patriots, yet you don't believe in protecting innocent and defenseless lives. You don't believe in protecting these babies from the abortion mills, and you say this stupid shit like, oh, let's just ignore the first trimester and leave that alone. When you say that, you in effect are saying, let's ignore 90% of abortions. So if you're unwilling to protect innocent and defenseless life, and if you're unwilling to fight to completely outlaw abortions in America, then don't even call yourself a patriot. You're a fucking lie. Thank you for tuning in to the Exodus Media Network.